So, one of the big questions that a lot of people are asking is I'm running a business. Do I really need a coach? Well, in today's episode, we're going to talk about that topic is it really worth the money? Do you really need one? The difference between a good and a bad coach. So, definitely stay tuned for the episode. So, as I said, coaches, it's a very big topic. I mean, when a lot of people are thinking about starting a business, they're really thinking about, how can I either go at it alone, or maybe they've heard about people that are working with coaches or working with mentors, and they're trying to figure that out. So, I figured it'd be a really good conversation to talk about. And today I'm doing the episode solo. Lola is off. I'm doing some amazing adventures, tackling some very major things that she's working on with some corporations and really getting that done. So I'll be solo on this one. And I know we usually have these conversations where we're talking about different concepts. And sometimes on the Business Talk Library, I got to take a step back because a lot of people ask me like, "Hey, can you like break it down a little bit more, like the kind of get into some of the details, like how do we do this, or talk about some of these specific topics." So I definitely wanted to talk about this one. Now, to give you a little bit of context, I've heard so many different stories. Some stories I've heard that are really good, like, hey, I started working with a coach. My business was here after working with this coach, and things developed. You know what? A year later, my business was here, which I think is great. Then there are some situations where I've heard people say, you know what? I've been paying this coach and I've been paying all these coaches, and I'm really not seeing the results that I was expecting, but I've still been paying all this money. So we're going to talk about a couple of those examples. And we're going to jump into that because I do think it's helpful for you guys to hear real world stories, real world situations. But before we get into that, I want to take a step back because right now, if you probably go on LinkedIn, or you go on Facebook, you go on any social media platform, even if you go in and you probably type in Google, I haven't done this, so I don't know exactly, but I'm guessing it'll be the same. Is there's going to be an endless number of people that you're going to find. Because one of the things that I tell someone is like, I feel like right now we're living in like the age of coaches where it's just like everywhere you look there. I mean, there are just literally coaches everywhere. And a lot of times they all kind of follow a very similar pattern. And so one of the things that I've been looking at is, on LinkedIn, every single week I get tons and tons of people reaching out to me. Like, hey, I saw that you're a coach. I can help you do this, or hey, I coach other businesses how to do this. And to be completely honest with you, one of the questions that I'm always asking is, I don't know. First comment that comes to my mind is, I don't know you. Like, you're randomly reaching out to me and you're trying to sell me your coaching program. Now, when I think about sports, which is something that we're all probably, some of us more familiar than others. But a lot of times when you think about coaches, usually you're looking at that person's resume, like what has that person done? How has that person helped other people? And what I find is that there are so many coaches out there, but which is slightly different from, like if you're watching sports. I mean, if you're watching NFL, there are only so many, head coaches in the NFL. I mean, because there's a limited number. I mean, when you look at like the NBA, or even when you go to college, I mean, there are a whole lot more college, head coaches than there are in the professional league, just because there's so many of them. But at some point, there is a limit. And one of the things that I find as we're living through this age of coaches is that right now there really are no barriers to who can call themselves a coach. I mean, because just about anybody can, whether they took a short class and they actually studied with someone and they learned a couple things. Now they're going to go out and they're going to teach somebody else, or maybe they actually went through some type of certification. and they figured out how they would be able to really help the people that they're working with. Well, all in all, a lot of times that all gets mixed in, it gets lost because when someone tells me that they're a coach, I have no idea what that means anymore. Because I mean, there have been so many people that have reached out to me and told me that's what they are. And you're kind of like, well, I really don't know what you like. What do you actually do? And so I think about a conversation I was having with friend of mine was in town from San Francisco, and he and I were sitting down. And he had just started. He started a similar business to mine, and so him and I were talking about his business. He was trying to figure out how to navigate like the contracts and the terms and stuff like that. And we were talking through some of those things, and he was like, there was a guy that reached out to him on LinkedIn about a coaching program. And he was talking to the guy. He was trying to understand. He was like, okay, all right, I got all this stuff that I need to get done. Like, are you going to help me do this? Like, how does this work? And the guy was like, no, I'll just kind of give you pointers, but you'll have to do all the work yourself. And it's one of those things that I think about for some people is like realizing what a coach is, what a coach does, and then also realizing what you need. So my advice to my friend that I was telling him, and I was like, based on what you're trying to work through in your business right now, you may not necessarily need a coach to help you get the work done. Maybe if you wanted to use a coach, maybe that coach can help you get connected to whether it's a virtual assistant or whether it's, contractors or people who can help you actually get the work done. Because if you're just going to like your typical coach, a lot of times what they're going to do is probably what you've seen in professional sports. They're going to stand on the sideline. They're gonna, tell you to go here, and they're gonna point you in different directions. They're not gonna do any of it for you, or they're not gonna do any of it with you. They're just gonna point you in the right direction, or hopefully they'll point you in the right direction. Now, one of the things that I always tell people is, in this age of coaching, you have to understand the reality of it is that there are so many people that are just throwing the word coaching on their title, and they may not necessarily be prepared to actually help you. So you got to understand, in this age of coaching where people are just, they've done a job for 6 months and now they're an expert coach, or they're an expert at this topic because they watched a couple YouTube videos. And I'm not knocking anybody's hustle or anybody's grind, because I mean, I think that some of the stuff in business, especially when it comes down to business, some of the stuff, I mean, it is a bit theoretical. Like, it's stuff that you can actually learn. And sometimes you do need the help of someone who's not emotionally in your situation, that can point things out to you and say, hey, we should probably think about this a little bit more. So I completely get that. But the thing that I always tell people is, you got to take a step back and ask yourself, what do you actually want from a coach? Because when I find a lot of people trying to request, help from a coach, or they're saying like, hey, I want to achieve this goal. And they're like, well, I'm just going to go get a coach. And I'm just like, well, what are your expectations? Because if you don't make your expectations clear, that relationship is probably going to be very, very sloppy. Like, I saw a picture online. This picture really stood out to me because it's one of those things that I look at, when I think about the concept of like a bad versus a good coach, or let me say bad expectations or no expectations versus good expectations. Like, on the right side, or I guess maybe it's on the left, depending on how you're looking at it. But in this photo, I mean, you have the masterpiece, the Mona Lisa. Now, the Mona Lisa is probably will be a forever masterpiece. Now, if you've ever been to Paris, like a couple years ago, I went to Paris and I actually saw the Mona Lisa in the Louvre. When I saw it, I was a little underwhelmed because I really didn't know the story behind it. But I mean, when you see it in the Louvre, you're like, it's not that big. I mean, there's this rope around it that protects it, so no one can get very close to it. But as you're looking at it, you're kind of like, you know what's so impressive about this painting? I mean, it's just a woman with a kind of a blank look on her face. Now, after doing a little bit of research and after, reading up some things, one of the things that I realized is the thing about the Mona Lisa was it was one of the first of its kind from the standpoint of no matter where you are standing in a room, if the Mona Lisa's on the wall, it always looks like she is looking directly at you. So the artist had some type of technique that he introduced that was new to where it was one of the first photos to have that type of effect, almost as if her eyes were following you around the room. So if you're in the Louvre Museum, I mean, the Mona Lisa exhibit is in a very large room because a ton of people are trying to see it. And this room is massive. So you can be on the far right side of the room or the far left side of the room. No matter where you are standing, it looks like her eyes are following you around the room, like whatever side you're on. Now, it's a painting, it's a still shot, so it's on the wall, so her eyes aren't moving, but that optical illusion makes it special. And the very first one, like the real Mona Lisa, has millions and millions and millions of dollars of value in it. Now, when you look at the one on the other photo, it's like this is supposed to be the Mona Lisa, but it's a horrible copy. And the reason why I bring this up is because this is just the reality that a lot of people face, where when people may say like, hey, I want to get a coach, and I'll ask them, okay, why are you wanting to get a coach? Because I do think, my personal opinion, I do think that there are some aspects of your business you really do need a coach, or you can really use a coach to help you go to the next level. I mean, when you think about professional athletes, no matter how much raw talent you have, there is some aspect of your raw talent that needs an objective third party to kind of help you shape things and kind of help you mold things and help you take things to the next level. And when it comes down to business, that's very true as well. There are some aspects about, what you're doing in business where you really do need some objective opinion to kind of help you take things to the next level. Because if you don't have it, you're probably going to be, just kind of scrambling, and you're going to do the best you know how to do. And I always tell people, if you're trying to go to a place you've never been, doing your best may not get you there. And I know a lot of people struggle with that because a lot of people struggle with that because they feel a little insulted. Like, what are you saying? My best isn't good enough? And I'm like, yes, that's exactly what I'm saying. Is that your best, if you're trying to go somewhere that you've never seen before, somewhere that you've never been. For example, let's say if I was trying to drive to what Anchorage, Alaska. I'm trying to drive from Anchorage, Alaska, from North Carolina. To be completely honest with you, I have never been. I don't know. I don't even know how to even get there. I mean, if you put me in a car, you didn't give me a map, you didn't give me a GPS. I'm telling you, I may not end up in Anchorage, Alaska. I may end up somewhere in Canada, but I may not actually end up at my destination because I just never been there. Even if I tried my very, very best, my best effort probably still wouldn't get me there. And when it comes down to business, that becomes very, very true. And one of the things that I compare back to sports, because I've seen this happen a lot, where I saw somebody who had absolutely raw talent, but they were not coachable at all. That raw talent, it helped them win on, in pickup games. It helped them win, let's say when they were in high school, and maybe they did a little better than the average person when they got to college. But then when they tried to kick it up to the next level, they were embarrassed. I mean, their performance was laughable compared to the other people who had done the work and the diligence of getting people who could help coach and work on those little things that you may not notice. Now, when it comes down to your business, one of the things that I tell a lot of people is that when you're going to work with a coach, one of the things you need to kind of get an idea on is what is it that you want the coach, like what area do you want the coach to help you in? Because what ends up happening is, and I'm pretty sure if the person who painted the, I guess you say, less than flattering picture, if you want to put it that way. The person who painted a less than flattering picture, someone probably said, "Hey, I want you to paint a picture of, you know, I want you to paint a picture of a fair-faced woman that's looking out with a landscape in the background." If you only gave those vague contexts, I probably can understand why they came up with this. Whereas if you came back and said, "Hey, I want you to paint the Mona Lisa," when you were very specific, it probably helped them put in context to where they probably would have known I need to step my game up, because if I'm trying to copy if you want a copy of the Mona Lisa, then what I put on, which what's up there on the left, isn't going to work. So I think step one of, if you're going to be working with a coach, is really getting an idea on what do you actually need help with, and being as clear about what you are trying to achieve as possible. Because that's how a lot of people end up getting stuck with a bad coach. Is part of it is they don't have very much clarity. Now, the other part about it is now this one is really understanding that you aren't always going to get the, you aren't always going to run into the best coach. Just as much as you are, or I guess you say the coach is evaluating you, you really need to evaluate the person who is coaching you. Because just because a person has the title of a business coach, that doesn't mean that they have the experience, they have the criteria to really help you in your business. So you want to make sure that you're really keeping an eye on that. I mean, because one of the things that I think about a lot of times is that people, when they go out there like, "Hey, I'm going to get a business coach," and they go and they pick someone, and then I start looking, I'm like, "Okay, what were you looking for?" Like, "Oh, I'm looking for someone who has a lot of experience, have helped people really grow and really help people take their business to the next level." And I'm like, "Well, what does the resume, or what does the background look like for the person that you picked?" And a lot of times it ends up looking like this, where you expect it to have a Hall of Fame coach. Well, what you end up with is some inexperienced lookalike, somebody who really doesn't have that much experience in what they're trying to help you with. Again, I go back to, as I said, we're living in the age of coaches where people are getting their hustle on when it comes down to business, where people are like, "Hey, I read these 3 books, I learned these 3 lessons. Now I'm gonna go out, I'm gonna create a website, create landing pages, and I'm gonna start advertising that I coach and I help people take their business to the next level." And one of the things that I always ask people when they're telling me they're a coach, they're like, "I help people generate or create a 6-figure business." And I'll ask them, "Well, how is your business doing? Like, how long did it take you to hit 6 figures? Like, is your business still doing 6 figures?" Because I will tell you from a personal experience, it's not all that difficult to hit 6 figures in your business. It is more difficult to stay at 6 figures or to grow from 6 figures in your business, to where I like to ask them that question is like, have you actually personally achieved the goal you're trying to help me reach? And are you still achieving the goal that you're trying to help me reach? Because if you did it 15 years ago and you did it that one time, you've never been back again, I'm not necessarily sure if you're the best coach for me. You might not have enough experience. Like, on the outside, you look like the coach I'm looking for. I mean, you kind of dress like them. I mean, you have the persona of what a coach in my area might look like, but you might not be the right fit. So one of the things that I always tell business owners is, if you're going to work with a coach, make sure you are actually working with a coach who really has the resume or who has the background of what you're looking for, and that you're not just working with a coach who may look like the part or they may dress like what you think you're looking for, is you really want to interview your coach as much as your coach is interviewing you. And so I would say, to kind of wrap it up, I mean, the big thing that people ask, again, the question was, are coaches worth it? In my personal opinion, I think coaches really are worth it. I mean, when I was building my business from on my own with my own effort, I mean, we kind of started plateauing when we started hitting about, 18 grand a month. And yeah, 18 grand a month where we started kind of plateauing. And I was just like, you know what? I really need to go in and do some work because I mean, it's great that we can hit 18 grand a month, but to be honest with you, I'm exhausted. I'm tired. There has to be a better way to do this. And so one of the things that I started doing was talking to other people who are a little further along than me, and talking with one of my coaches and a coach that I had met, and she really helped me understand a few things. And the way I like to explain to people what a good coach does, and kind of one of the things that a really good coach does is it's almost like as you're doing the work, they're helping draw out that map so you kind of know they're like, I guess you say they're a couple steps ahead of you and helping fill in the gap. So as you're working through things, as you're doing the hard work, you're putting in the steps. They're helping you kind of navigate that a little bit and kind of drawing out the map a few steps ahead of you. Never going too far ahead of you to where, hey, you never can catch up, but being just close enough to where you are today, understanding where you are and helping you make those next steps that you need to get to the next level. Because the thing about it is it's like the old proverb says, a journey of 1,000 miles starts with one step. I mean, to be honest with you, you can really only do one step at a time. Maybe, I mean, I guess if you're a little fancy, maybe you can, hop with both feet and you could do 2 steps at a time. But in reality, you want to work with someone who is able to help you make the incremental steps forward that you need to make. And the big thing to realize is that the coach you work with today may not be the coach you work with for the rest of your business or the rest of your life or whatever. Or that just may be a coach that you work with in a specific area within your business. Maybe you need to do, you work with multiple coaches in different areas. Whatever the case is you always want to step back. I think a simple rule of thumb when you're looking at coaches or you're trying to work with a mentor is asking yourself, are they helping me make the incremental steps to move forward? If they are, that could be a sign of a good coach that you should continue working with. So I hope this was very helpful for all of our listeners, all the viewers, because when it comes down to business, I'll be honest with you, you can go at it alone, and you can learn the hard way. I mean, one of the things that I learned from, that I learned, I believe I heard my father say it, and different other mentors early on say, it's like, hey, you can learn things the hard way on your own, and you can struggle through it, and you might survive. Or you can learn from the mistakes of other people and the mistakes that you made, which will hopefully be less, and you will actually find that you'll move forward in life more smoothly. You'll move forward in life faster. So whatever it is that you're doing, make sure you are paying attention to not only just learning from your own experience, but learning from the experiences of those around you. If you'd like to see more of the Business Talk Library, be sure to watch us every week on Tuesday nights at 6 p.m.